was at home one evening when a strange gentleman knocked at the door. He was dressed in an expensive black suit and holding a large briefcase. "I wonder if I might have a few moments of your time," he said. They invited him in. He placed his briefcase down on the table and took out a box with a single red button on top. He handed the box to the couple. "Today is your lucky day," he said. "You have an opportunity to become rich beyond your wildest imagination. If you press this button, you will receive $1 million in cash. There's just one catch. Someone you don't know will die." The gentleman opened his briefcase and revealed the stacks of money inside. He told them he would return the next day to collect the box. After he left, the couple argued for hours about the box. Eventually, they decided to press the button. Nothing happened. The next day, the gentleman came back. He took the box and gave them $1 million. As he was about to leave, the husband asked, "Did someone really die?" "Of course," the gentleman replied. "It happened last night. Someone you didn't know died." The husband felt guilty. His conscience was eating at him. "One more question," he said. "Yes? What do you want to know?" said the gentleman. "What are you going to do with the box now?" The gentleman smiled and said, "I'm going to give it to someone who doesn't know you."
This is why you should never knock on a stranger's door. Once there was a man trying to check into a hotel. The woman at the front desk gave him his key and told him none of the guests are allowed to go into the room across the hall. He agreed, but as he continued to stay in the hotel, he grew more and more curious about the room he wasn't supposed to go in. At one point, he even walked down the hall to that room and tried the door. It was locked. Then he bent down and looked through the keyhole. He saw that it was just the same as his hotel room. But in the corner of the room, there was a woman whose skin was extremely pale, almost a sickly white. Her back was to the wall, so the man didn't see what she looked like. He almost knocked on the door, but then just decided to leave her alone. The next day, he walked past the door again and decided to look into the keyhole. This time, there was no hotel room and no woman. It was all just red. He thought that this seemed really strange, so he went to the front desk and asked about the room. After insisting on an answer, the woman at the front desk told him, "A long time ago, a man killed his wife in that room, and her ghost is still there. But these ghosts are not what you might imagine. They're completely white all over, except for their eyes, which are red."
So about a month ago, my best friend and I went on a quad ride behind my house, and we came across this really strange guy with a shovel bearing something. So we went back, told my parents, they thought nothing of it. Then today, which is a month later, we went back, and now it was covered in rocks, and it was like 3 feet tall, and it was the length of a human. So we got my mom, and we ended up getting the cops involved. So they undug it because they thought there was something weird. So then they found a few pieces of evidence of something, but they don't know what it was.
Day I was shopping with my dad and my sister at Walmart. It was the middle of the day, we were just getting groceries, and my sister and I were fighting about which type of cereal we should get. Honey Bunches of Oats, always. And all of a sudden, this lady comes up to us looking really scared. Her eyes are opened really wide, and she's kind of shaking, looking really nervous, and she asks my dad if she can hide behind us. My dad doesn't really know what to do. He's caught off guard, so he says yes. Because it felt really serious, and even though we didn't know what was going on, our instinct was to protect this woman. She hides behind the corner of the cereal aisle, and we're just blocking the end of the aisle, and my dad and my sister and I are just looking at each other like, what's going on? And before we can say anything to each other, this man rounds the corner at the other end of the aisle, and he's walking really urgently and aggressively towards us. And he asks if we've seen a woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a blue t-shirt, which is exactly what the woman looks like. So we deny it. We say, no, we haven't seen this woman. We don't know who he's talking about. But then the woman pokes out from behind the aisle, and he sees her hiding behind us. And that's when things got crazy. He sees the woman and starts to get really mad and is yelling at us to get out of his way. But we aren't moving. And he's shouting, "That's my wife, move." And the lady is looking really scared. So my dad takes out his phone and tries to call 911. And the man swats my dad's phone away as soon as he sees it, and it falls to the ground. So then my dad starts running to find someone in the store, either a security guard or an employee to help. And when my dad moves, the man pushes me and my sister out of the way, grabs the woman, and starts dragging her out of the Walmart. But the whole time he's dragging her, he's making direct eye contact with me. Like he's not even blinking, he's just staring at me. And then before he gets to the door, he whispers something in the lady's ear. And then all of a sudden, her body language changes completely. She doesn't look worried or scared anymore. She looks totally calm. And then she turns around and looks back at me one more time. So they're both staring at me. And then the woman kind of smirks. And then they leave the store.
This is why you should never stay in sketchy motels. In 2005, a young woman on a solo road trip across the country decided to stop for the night. The first place she sees is the Mountaintop Motel. It looked pretty cheap, but she was tired, so she said good enough. The check-in guy eyed her up and down very uncomfortably and then asked her if she was traveling alone. She ignores the question, pays for her room, and then walks away with the key. When she gets inside her room and sees there are literally cockroaches in her bed, she says nope and decides to sleep in her car in the parking lot. Around 3 a.m., she wakes up to see the check-in guy using his own keys to get into the motel room she was supposed to be in. A few minutes later, he storms out and slams the door and starts walking towards her car. Terrified, she hides under her blanket as the man tries to open her car doors but can't and walks away. She speeds off and calls her friend and asks her to look up the address of Mountaintop Motel so she can give it to police. Her friend's quiet for a second and then just says, "The Mountaintop Motel closed a week ago."
This is one show and tell story that has a crazy twist. In 2016, a young boy named Ollie did a show and tell at school. He was most excited to show off his bow and arrow because most of the kids thought he was a liar and didn't really believe that he had one. But as you can imagine, for him to bring it to school, he had to get permission from the teachers. And they said yes, but no arrows. On the morning of the show and tell, everyone was excited and his mum had turned up to the school with the bow. Ollie was called up to the office and had to go get it off his mum. He took it off her and said, "Mum, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this." And he said, "I'll see you soon." But when he got up to do his presentation, he had an arrow in his bag and put it in the bow. Everyone was amazed. But just as he drew it back, a bird hit the window. Ollie jumped and so did everybody else. But once they all realised it was a bird, everyone relaxed and started laughing. Except Ollie. He looked over and saw his mum just outside the classroom. She was laying on the ground with the arrow sticking out of her head. She was dead.